Good morning. Welcome to the 49ers Playbook. That's former Raiders offensive coordinator Tom Walsh. I'm Grant Cohn. I'm going to ask Tom today how one of these NBA scandals could happen in the NFL. We're going to get to that, and we're going to talk about how we always do, how the Niners should approach the Texans on offense and defense, and we'll have visual aids as well with pass reps. First, I want to ask Tom about big picture. Where did you watched the whole league? The Niners just beat the Falcons. We thought the Falcons would win this game. It was a very impressive win. Now they're 5-2, the 49ers. Where do you think they stand in the NFC? Are they one of the five best teams, even without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner?
Grant, I think they are right on the cusp of being one of the top five. They're maybe number in the top six, definitely in the top seven. I think they could ascend even higher up into the rankings if some of the injured players come back and begin to produce and add a little bit more maturity and experience to their offense and defense. And, they can compete. I tell you, the one thing that impressed me the most about this past weekend is like I'm watching the ball game and I'm thinking, oh my God, so the light bulb finally went on in the attic of Kyle Shanahan's hat. He, instead of plays, he realized his players. And so he took some of his most favorite things that he's been doing in the past, put them on the shelf because they have not been working, especially in the run game, changed his whole mindset about how they were going to attack, going more downhill between the tackles, more aggressive, not running laterally and horizontally with sprint spots on the outside zone and the stretch place and all that. And if Kyle continues along this vein offensively, even though they're struggling in a lot of regards about offensive statistics, they've got a chance to be very competitive. And you look at the Lions, you look at the Eagles, you look at the Packers, you look at the Rams. Even the Buccaneers losing the other night to Detroit. It's a toss-up. There's no dynasty, that is going to run away with the NFC title this year. And so if he can stay in that mindset, and Salah's doing a masterful job on defense, I think the Niners have a chance to make it deeper into the playoffs than most people expected at the beginning of the year. Plus, the schedule is in their favor because it was the weakest schedule in the league in the first place. So if they can get people back healthy and Kyle can stay within the mindset of it's the players, not the plays, Kyle. Think about your players and how to best utilize your players and then design concepts around what they can do best rather than your favorite plays that you've had in your mind for the last 22 years and just go that way. They've got a chance to be well. They could win 12 ball games this year.
I think early on in the season when they were winning games, it was hard to look at them as real contenders because of the running game. It's like you're not going to drop back and pass 45 times a game all season and win 12 games or win playoff games. You got to figure out the running game. You got to figure out an identity on the ground that fits your personnel. And like you said, is outside zone doesn't seem to fit this personnel that well. And I want to ask you why. Is it all Christian? Does he not quite have the burst to get to the sprint spots? Is it also, the wide receivers aren't blocking as well as they did in the past? I mean, Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk used to be some of the best. It seems like is it the running? Is it the blocking? What do you think?
There's a combination. But number one in my mind is the one aspect that kills these zone schemes, which everybody's been running, is penetration. So if I can get any penetration, especially at the offensive tackle positions, from a defensive perspective, now that ruins the whole concept of the stretch scheme because now when that penetration comes up the field, it forces the back into a one-way cut, which is back into the heart of the defense. Because I no longer can get outside and on the edge because my tackle has not been able to button run and to be able to negate the penetration from the 5 technique or 7 technique at defensive end. And I think that's a key factor. Remember now, they used to run the power runs to the left and the outside zone to the right, even going back to the days of the former Notre Dame tackle who's now at Denver. And that's always been their bread and butter. Well, that's no longer there because defenses have figured out, okay, penetration kills zone schemes. It's the biggest negative that can happen. And if you're blocking laterally and trying to reach and button run and button cut and button turn, and your tackle can't get it done, you're not going to secure the edge, and you're not going to have a chance for the back to have more than just a one-way cut.
Is this scheme better for Christian McCaffrey at this stage in his career to just run him between the tackles and to try to get him outside?
It's much better. Now, we can still run the crack tag schemes, especially to my left with Trent Williams, because he is unique at being able to pull and run. It reminds me of the old days at the Raiders. We would switch sometimes Upshaw and Shell and put Upshaw at tackle when we were running the crack tag, because Gene could run extremely well. He was like a 4.6 guy coming out of Texas A&I playing offensive guard. But anyway, I've got that play to the left. I can run the inside zone with the design cutback schemes. I can run the power between the tackles, the Joker O concept, double down, pull the off guard, and walk around into the opposite A gap. Or I can go straight downhill with the weak side leads and allow McCaffrey to have a head of steam coming in there and to make his cut up into the line of scrimmage and press the line of scrimmage and hold the defense in place. And then he's really good at making a jump cut or a skip cut and then getting back on track and running with his pads down enough with enough force that he's going to gain yardage. So I like that run. So happy to see Kyle finally say, Nirvana, the light bulb went on. This is what we got to do. And they were very successful. And he stayed with it. That was the other key. Now, contrary, I look at the third down statistics. They are like second, I think, in the NFL with like a 47 or 48% conversion rate, which is phenomenal. You're giving your offense another three downs. Conversely, they have the same percentage in the red zone, which is 25th in the league. Okay, 47% in the red zone, 25th in the NFL. He's only cranking out 20.3 or 20.4 points per game. Well, if you're not successful in the red zone, you're kicking a lot of field goals. So you're trading 3s for 7s. And, it's hard to put the pressure on the defense to have such a stalwart effort each week when your offense is not even scoring 3 touchdowns. How many teams go to the Super Bowl averaging 20 points a game?
PrizePicks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use promo code COHN, COHN, and download the app now. Why do you think the Niners are so good on third down and so ineffective in the red zone? Is this just a Kyle Shanahan thing? Is he going to have a moment of nirvana and figure it out in the red zone, or is this a personnel thing?
Well, this way. If you can run the ball well on first or second down, and they're getting a little bit better at that, I'm into a third down and more of a higher percentage conversion. If I can keep it between 3rd and 4 to 6, 3rd and 1 to 2, I've got a chance. If I go to 3rd and 7 to 9, 3rd and 10 and plus, my percentages just go in the toilet. So the run game helps me on third down because I can keep it where I can run a shallow cross, I can run a stick route, I can run a pressure route, I can throw an option route to McCaffrey at 5 yards, and he's going to gain the yardage necessary for the first down. 3rd and 10, it's hard to throw the option route at 5 or 6 yards and then say, hey, catch the ball and run for 4 more yards to get me the first down. Conversely, when you get into the red zone, you need to have the run game. And I think if we can get to that point this coming Sunday, where Kyle will use the same type of running game that he featured this past week against the Falcons, you're going to see more effectiveness in the run zone, red zone with that kind of a run game.
If I remember correctly, the Niners had early in Kyle's tenure, 2017, 2018, they could move the ball up and down the field with whoever their running backs and quarterbacks were, but they struggled in the red zone. And Kyle's solution for that in year 3 really was Deebo Samuel, not necessarily as a receiver, but as a guy on an end around or a screen or just on a handoff. Guy scored a lot of touchdowns for the Niners the last 5-6 years in the red zone. And now it seems like if it's not Christian and they don't really have that go-to guy, maybe it'll be George Kittle. I don't know. Who would you go to with the current? How would you do it?
Well, okay, granted, they don't have that jet sweep guy anymore. Okay, there's nobody on that roster, including Ricky Pearsall, whenever he's healthy, that can be the Deebo Samuels kind of guy. Deebo was a punishing runner as a wide receiver on the jet sweeps. And also on the screen game, they threw a lot of those 0 yard passes, negative air yards almost concept, and Debo turns it into an 18, 19 yard gain. He had unique skills in that regard. Well, they don't have that player anymore. So I have to go back. The other thing I think that you need to understand down in the red zone is that they can run some play action passes rather than just dropping back all the time. That would help them because that would eliminate some linebackers and some safeties in coverage who are biting on the run fake. That would clear up some of the traffic that they have into where Mac could throw the ball with fewer defenders floating around in space. And so I would look for that. I go back to some of the fire action passes that used to be run where you have a lock slide and bringing everyone down, put the fullback or the H-back out in the flat hot. You got a wide receiver running a choice route, a spot route. You got a tight end running the corner route. So you now have a three-man pattern to a side where you can bring the ball out quickly. If the shoot route, if the fast flat opens up now, bam, put the ball on them. And I think that helps draw the defense in and allows you to outflank them that way. When you drop back, it's too obvious to everybody. You got a condensed field. You don't have a Canadian end zone, so everything happens more quickly. So you've got to find other ways to outflank the defense and to beat them with a show, run, and throw the ball.
I got a suggestion. It's real simple. Use Jake Tunges. Jake Tunges, I think, is a weapon in the red zone. When they throw him the ball, he often scores a touchdown. Kittle comes back and you forget about him entirely. No, throw to Jake Tunges in the red zone.
I go back to some of the patterns to the tight end over the years, the stick and the stick nod concepts and those kind of things, where when you're looking at the way the defenses are playing, the other day, Mac Jones did a masterful job of looking off the Mike linebacker. Atlanta was playing a Tampa 2 scheme. And I think he ended up completing the pass for 17, 18 yards to Christian McCaffrey. And Mac looked off to the right to the tight end who was hooking up in the alley over there. The Mike linebacker moved a bit, and Mac was able to pump it into Christian. Well, you can take advantage of the Tampa 2 scheme because you still have creases in there. And the play action package, is my number one thing. And the tight end can get free on play action pass more easily than anybody else on the field.
Yeah, and if you're, defending the Niners, Tunges is the last guy you're thinking about on any play.